Hello guys and welcome back. This is of course Mr. Siege. Now we're going into KVK at last. It seems like ages and ages since we last fought, and to be honest, the last couple of KVKs were kind of dire for me. Barely any fighting, so it was really a struggle, especially with siege marches. It makes it a lot harder when there's very minimal fighting, cheeseburgering, a bit of pass fighting, only, no big balls like we've seen in the 1960 KVK and many other KVKs to be fair, so it has been a struggle. Now in this video, obviously as you can see, we've entered the Tides of War KVK. 251 kingdoms registered for this KVK. So we're going to look at the camps in this KVK. Obviously made up of fire, earth, wind and water. We are actually water camp, and we're going to show you the kills and the power of these kingdoms made up in these camps, and obviously the negotiations that have gone on so far. It's been a little bit messy so far, and we were supposed to be allies with earth, but fire refusing to fight now, so we're going to look at these kingdoms very, very shortly. As you can see, they're all made up of 4 kingdoms, and 3060 is actually an Imperium kingdom, and we'll go look at their kills in a minute. So it's going to be kind of funny because that is an Imperium kingdom, and they've got a lot of power. I believe 2 10-bill main alliances, which is crazy. So they're supposed to be really strong, but they're actually going to be the weakest camp on paper. Now that may be surprising. We'll have to see. Now look, the Kingdom of Bovril. Might have to consider going there one day. I do love Bovril. Don't know if that's just a UK drink or what. Very possibly. So those are the list of all the kingdoms in my KVK. Obviously I'm in 3069, and let's go and take a look at all the stats for these kingdoms now. And at the end of the video, obviously you're going to look at all the gear I'm going to be using and the marches I'm going to be using for this KVK, and look at the kills before and obviously after KVK. We'll do another video and go check them out too. So as you can see, we've got a nice set of tables made by a couple of guys in my kingdom, obviously the R4s and R5s, and obviously we can see fire, earth, water and wind, all the kingdoms that make up these camps, their power and KP. Earth are probably the strongest camp, 62 build power, but 2 trillion KP, which is crazy, and then 1.9 trillion KP for fire, which obviously is the second strongest camp. We're the third strongest camp. A couple of strong kingdoms in there. 2563 look pretty good. 2691 are probably the weaker of the weaker of the kingdoms in our camp, but they've only got 11.5 build power, so that's actually not a bad KP for power ratio, to be honest with you. So the way we wanted to fight would be water, which is us, versus earth, and earth versus fire and wind. And to be honest, we're not bothered. We just want a great fight. I'd say fire probably have the best kingdom in terms of 3379 with 19 build power, but nearly a trillion KP. They should be a ridiculously strong alliance and expect a lot of fighting from them. 1900 however, very, very strong too. Low power, high KP. But yeah, fire have got a lot more power, so they've got a lot more troops to dispose of potentially. And we've got the least. Okay, 53 billion power, which isn't a lot in comparison to other camps here. Now the crazy kingdom 3060, Imperium kingdom 25.8 bill power, 229 bill KP, and they are what looks like the weakest camp on paper for KP, but the highest in power. So I don't know what's going on in that kingdom, whether they just let everyone in, I don't know. But I can tell you now, we're currently doing Marauders, and they are top of Marauders because they're obviously very active. They've got a lot of players, and a lot of people obviously can go around killing Marauders. I enjoy doing it too, but yeah, that's going to be very interesting. If they all turn up, regardless of their KP, they could be overwhelming, to be fair. Now fire aren't actually happy with the diplomacy we've come up with, so I don't know what they're going to suggest. I'd be happy to go free for all. I know we're pretty strong. We can put up a fight against earth and fire. However, fire wish to go top versus bottom, and obviously that would be ridiculous. I think fire are looking for an easy win this KVK by the sounds of it, and that's crazy. Fire just sort yourselves out. You and wind could do a good job. Now I don't want to write 3060 off because of all that power. They've got a lot of disposable troops, a lot of activity, and at certain times of the day that could prove very punishing potentially. So yeah, again, Earth, look, a very, very strong camp. 3 very equal kingdoms there, 1564, 1717, 2394, all look very, very decent indeed. And you know what? I'm happy with our camp. Some decent kingdoms there, but who knows what's going to happen. This was the idea: wind and fire, water and earth. 130 build power for wind and fire. That's a hell of a lot of power in comparison to our 115 build power. But obviously KP wise, we would have a bit more with water and earth. But I think that power could, you know, I think that's the fairest way this KVK could be matched up. You know, again, Lilith with matchmaking, you've put a very weak camp, or what looks like a weak camp on paper for wind, and that's making diplomacy a huge struggle. So guys, what do you think? Who do you think should team up? Do you think we should do a free-for-all? We just go it out? You know, it's probably going to be between us 3 camps. I mean, wind again could do a job. Who knows? They could be a dark horse, this KVK. You know, maybe they've got some huge whales in this kingdom and they're just going to start spending now. I do not know, but maybe they've had some bad matchups and they've not had any fights. Maybe that's why the KP's low. I don't know. Just tell me what you think would be a fair matchup. I think either earth and wind versus, you know, fire and water, or earth and water versus fire and wind. I think that's fine. I don't think pairing us with wind is a fair matchup on paper. So for fire to suggest that and think that's fair, that doesn't make sense to me. I think fire are after an easy win this KVK, and your leaders, just sort yourselves out. I mean, what are you thinking there? You know, we're not bothered. We will fight whatever. So that'll be interesting, and I'm looking forward to some decent fighting this KVK. That's all we want, is just some decent fighting. Now let's go check out the commanders I'll be using in this KVK. Obviously Margaret will be primary, and we're going to run her with Cordoba. We're going to run Gauge Armada with Babur, and we're going to run John with Stephen. Now we may run a 4th march, and that might be like Narcissus and Shajar, which we'll get onto in a little bit. So this is Margaret's kit. Obviously she's got full siege set with a ring and a plume, and that equates to about 100% stats with a nice 28% march speed. Obviously, as you can see, we've got 3 crits on that set there: the helm, chest, and the boots, which is very nice. Obviously I've only been crafting pieces at the moment. I've not been upgrading them in terms of refining the gear. Now this is the armament set we've got on Margaret. Obviously we've got drilled, sharpshooter. Sharpshooter's a funny one. Obviously we've seen some videos from Billect recently about the sharpshooter inscription. I did ask him to make a video on this. I also asked him to make a video on Merciless, but there's actually really good stats on this. And it's very disappointing that we'll lose rage with sharpshooter. Nowhere near as much as destructive. And then we've got ballistics, 3% all damage is also very nice. So decent set of armaments on Margaret. Gauge Armada is going to be primary with Babur, of course. And again, another full siege set. No crits on this one, but we are running a drum, and that drum is going to help make up for some of the rage loss from the sharpshooter. Now I would love a horn on these sets, but it's just so expensive to craft. I wanted to craft the siege gear first before I go mad on accessories, and that's why I'm running Delane's amulets. So we've got Tremors, Warcry, Fearsome, Armoured, Ballistics, and Smite. Some decent normal inscriptions for Gauge Armada here, and again some fairly decent siege stats on that kit too. Now in fact Tremors would actually probably be better on the Margaret Cordoba march, because Tremors actually affects all targets hit by the skill, and if we're running her with Cordoba, obviously the 3 target AoE, the Tremors will be better on the Margaret march. So I'm going to switch that over, and then I can show you this AoE. So obviously it will do 1200 AoE at range, 2400 damage factor at melee range, and then we're just going to put this armament back onto Gauge Armada. I could use Phalanx, 1.9% all damage there, but that little bit of shield isn't going to do a lot. So I think we're inevitable just have to stick this sharpshooter with better stats on Gauge Armada here. Maybe not the best choice because all damage is nice, but I'm going to do it anyway, even though we're losing that rage, which is kind of disappointing. Maybe Lilith need to look at this too. You shouldn't be putting inscriptions in that are losing a ton of rage, especially for Siege, which obviously is slow generating rage anyway. So that's all sorted. Switch them over. I'm pretty happy with that. I know we could do some more transmuting, and you know, just haven't got enough transmutation stones for now. Obviously can look at doing that in the future. I wouldn't generally keep this one here, 1.5, but you know, I'm just happy to get full Siege stats at the moment, rather than messing about and just switching from a Siege stat to something else. There's not much point, to be honest with you. I can work on that in the future. So again, I'm happy with these inscriptions. Smite's also very, very good. 2% smite damage with Gauge Armada's fine with me. Now, John Hunyadi obviously will be running as primary with Stephen, which seems like the best pairing for John, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anything better with John personally. Again, full Siege set. This time we've got the dagger, which obviously reduces the enemy's health. And if we're targeting the same march and hitting weaker marches with all 3 marches, or potentially 4 marches, which we'll see later in the video, then this reducing the other march's health is going to be greatly beneficial, to be honest, and beneficial to other troops on the field. Now again, we've got a decent set of armaments. I am going to use Merciless sometimes, so I'd say for like pass fights and short fighting, Merciless is fine. But if we do get some really good ball fights, I'll be switching that around for something probably something a little bit better. But the stats on this are really good. 2% all damage. I mean the Siege stats aren't amazing, but the 2% all damage is also really, really nice. That's almost an inscription in its own. And these aren't really great double inscription there. So for me, I think that's probably the best choice for now. You know, at least with Merciless, we're not losing any rage. So it's not terrible. Cohesive is really good, and we've got that on Narcissus at the moment. So that Cohesive actually could be the best choice. If we don't use Merciless, I'll probably put Cohesive on. I'll switch that from Narcissus, and I'll probably use that most of the time. Assertive again is really good, but the stats aren't great on that one either. So I may have to work on that in the future. Pulverize, 10% chance to deal 20% bonus all types of normal damage dealt. It's okay. Warcry pretty basic. Uplifting's pretty good. 1% normal damage, and obviously you can get up to 5%. Not the best on John. Obviously better for a smite damage commander. And then line shot, again 5% more range normal damage. Better on, again, the smite commanders. But when I go back to look at my smite commanders, they've already got decent inscriptions on those slots anyway. I believe they've got full draw on Margaret, so I'm not going to switch that about. I'll leave that as it is. Yeah, so I've actually got sharp arrows on Margaret, and that does 4% boost to the range normal damage. So that's got to stay on her with Cordoba. That's going to have more of an impact on that march. So line shot will just have to stay on John for now, even though it's not greatly impactful for him. So now let's go and look at the amount of kills we've got on these commanders already, because I do like to compare these to after KVK and see how many kills they've gained each commander after the KVK has ended. So 55.8 was for Margaret, 40 million kills for Gonzalo de Cordoba. I've only had him for like a year. Margaret's obviously been out for 2 years now. Still meta, by the way, doing amazing. Nearly 30 million kills for Gauge Armada. He'll soon be at 30 million kills. And nearly 48 million kills for Babur, which is actually crazy for, again, a 2-year-old commander that people don't invest in. Only 4 million kills for John, because obviously last KVK wasn't amazing. And again, just over 4 million kills for Stephen. So it'd be interesting to see how many kills I can get this KVK with these pairings. And I'm expecting good things, hopefully. Let's get some great fight in this KVK. I'll try and record a lot of it as well. We even do a siege watch on Mr. Siege for once. Now this is my 4th set, which I didn't show you at the time. I would want to replace this weapon but I'm holding off on the weapon. I might have to do this chest piece first, because I do want the 4-piece set, or could do the gloves, whichever I've got available first. No panic on which one I do choose to do first. But the weapon is the biggest one that's going to make an impact, really. I'm happy with, Silent Trial. Using that is going to reduce the enemy's rage as well, which is going to help the frontline troops. And again, another Delane's Amulet. You can't go wrong with a Delane's Amulet on a ranged march. So I could use this, and would I use Narcissus with Catherine? It's potential, but even more likely, I would probably run Narcissus with Shajar. And you may have seen other videos that I did do some testing with Shajar actually, but I did say Shajar could be fantastic, and I did get her in the Commander Swap event. Obviously the active skill won't work, the second skill won't work, because obviously that's Archer Health and Archer March Speed bonus, but this skill will work. So the troop takes 10% less normal damage. No, well, okay, we don't take 10% less normal damage because we take ranged normal damage, but whenever the troop uses an active skill, it mighty heals up to 3 nearby allied troops, and that would actually work. So when I'm running Narcissus and Shajar, they're actually going to be healing my troops at the same time. We're also going to take 20% less damage while on the map, which we're always going to be on, and obviously you can mighty heal a bit more when reduced to 6% units remaining, which is fine. And what's also great with the expertise here is whenever the commander's troop heals a troop, for the next 3 seconds the healed troop gains 10% more defense. We're not going to deal 20% more normal damage, because obviously it's ranged normal damage that ranged troops deal, but Shajar is going to help heal my other troops, keep them alive for longer, and also provide them with a little bit extra defense, which is also going to help keep them alive longer. And if I just run these with T4, they should still trade positive. I did run Narcissus Shajar for a little bit last KVK when there was an opportunity. Still traded positive. Not many kills, like very, very little kills. But at the end of the day, when you're just boosting your other marches nearby, that's massively beneficial. So we'll look at Narcissus got 300k kills here, and I'm obviously hoping to improve that a little bit. Overall, 5.28 billion kills, and I would like to hit 6 billion kills this KVK minimum. I'm expecting to do very, very well this KVK. Be nice to be better than 42 million kills in a KVK. 50 would be great, but I guess again it's just to see how it's going to go, because obviously there's so many questions in terms of which camps we're going to be fighting and allied with this KVK. Could be really interesting, so we'll have to wait and see. I'm really excited. Hopefully we can have loads and loads of fighting, and I can show you guys loads of different ranged fighting, record all the fighting and just break it down into sections, so you guys don't have to watch a full stream. Obviously that just takes ages. No one wants to watch huge full streams of ranged fighting. So guys, this is Mr. Siege. Catch you on the next one. Bye bye.